Hi everybody and welcome back to the Renewables Podcast. Welcome back. Thank you very much for coming back. And if you haven't already subscribed, then why not do it now before we get into this episode? We really appreciate it and it keeps you up to date with all of the latest episodes. But anyway, before we introduce our special guest, our returning special guest, how are you doing, Mark? How's your week been?
It's been good so far, to be honest. I think last time we spoke, we were both a bit under pressure, shall we say, not quite in the best of spirits. But I'm good this week, really happy with how things are going with the training centre and the excitement of what's to come next week, and chatting with our guest today as well.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. I think thinking back to that week, I think we were both quite stressed with the realities of doing solar and battery and everything else, and our special guest knows all about those stresses after the week he's had. So we've got Mike is back. Magic Mike is back from East Renewables, but also from the brand new podcast that you've started, Mike.
Yeah. The only panel podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe.
Yeah, there we go. Right, cancel the podcast. But yeah, as a bit of an insight, I was supposed to be recording with Mike and Dan on that podcast, but Dan's got caught up on a job, so we thought, well, who better to have on our podcast than Mike himself, and go through a bit of a challenge that we've had this week, Mike, or you and Ollie have had this week on a very challenging slate roof.
I feel like a bit of a challenge you've put us through this week because it was one of your jobs. But I think I've actually decided that's it for renewables now.
We forced Magic Mike out of renewables. Imagine
Must
that.
be a bad one if it's put Mike off, because you love it more than anyone, mate. But I've been following in the stories. I think Ollie's had a few out.
Yeah.
You've had a few I've seen on yours, and I thought this is a job that I don't think we're getting the full picture of through Instagram. So it sounds like a bit of a bad one.
It felt like one I didn't really want to have the time to record.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because so to give people a bit of context to that job, we had a project where the customer had solar panels on their detached garage. It was only a small garage, and they wanted the panels upgrading and a battery storage system putting in the garage. And on the face of it, when I went to survey it, it looks like actually a really nice job. Didn't have to get involved with the house because it was a detached garage. We could run the clamp for the battery around the outside of the building, around an external wall, so right round to the meter. Oh, brilliant. 2 days, easily got this. And slate roof, which is never that easy. And little did we know that underneath the panels that were on before, the hooks had not only been industrially sealed and glued to like 50 slates each, so you couldn't get the hooks out, but the slates underneath those panels were just, I think Adam and Eve put them on that roof. They were that old. Like, they were so old. And they worked good with a mic.
I could only liken them to, what's that parchment paper, is it, that just drops to bits when you pick it up?
Oh, like the old Egyptian style.
Can't think what it's called now, but
like papyrus paper or something like that.
Yeah. Literally, and we were repairing like the right hand side of the roof, and bits of slate were dropping down on the left hand side. So you thought you were right with that side because you hadn't touched it, but by the time you're working across, you're just
chasing your tail.
So it turned into a full-on re-roof more than a repair job from the look of it.
200 slates back on that roof.
Wow. I mean, that's something you can never, when you survey it, if they're under the panels and it looks okay around the outside of the bits you can see, what do you even do with that? And I guess other installation companies out there might just kind of try and patch and hide bits and stick stuff back on top, or drop the job altogether. But you have worked through it, and it's been a pain, and it's lost the Mike is leaving the industry, but you got through it.
I might be all right by next week. But
it was tricky, wasn't it, Mike? Because I think because you weren't there on the first side of the garage, because the first side of the garage was done a week or so beforehand. And Ollie and Dean had been up on there, and they were like, "It's quite brittle, but it's not so bad." Yeah. And so they'd managed to get that other side done, and then when they went back up to do the other side, it was we just couldn't work out how one side of the roof could be not so bad, and the other side could just be crumbling when you just went up the ladder to the scaffold. Like, it was just like the videos that they showed me, it was just unbelievable. And you kind of get the thing with slate is that I've found is you can go on a really nice run with some good slates. Like if you're working on new builds, then they're going to be new slates all the time. But on retrofits, like when you're working with slate, you can have like maybe 10 jobs in a row, and you go, slate's all right. We've already had a bit of a bad go before. We're probably never going to get a bad slate roof again. And then one hits you, and I think it's tricky to price that in, because if you always priced in 300 slates for every single solar job, you would never win a slate solar job. Like the way I've kind of had to justify it to myself to get myself to sleep after spending so much money on slates and additional labour for that job is kind of like, it's just jobs like that have just got to average out. Like you can't like beat yourself up that you've decided to do it the right way, and you've bought all those extra slates, and we actually went back to the customer and went, look, it's just these slates are unbelievably terrible on this side. We don't want to leave you with a roof that's not waterproof. Yeah. But unfortunately, we've already doubled the amount of additional slates that we usually put in, and the labour time has increased. So we actually returned to the customer for basically an additional payment of that to try and cover us, because it was kind of, do you just take that on the chin when it isn't really your fault? But I appreciate it's not the customer's fault either. But you're in that situation where to do this properly, it's not only a nightmare job. You need more labour and more materials. It's like, unfortunately, that's the customer. You're there to do a service, and to do it right, you're just going to need more money to do it. And actually, when you're upfront and honest with people about that, they actually would prefer you to speak to them about these sorts of problems and be just open and upfront with them. And a lot of the time they just go, yeah, if that's what it needs, that's what it needs. And I'm sure some customers might be funny, but a lot of the time if you show them the evidence and go, look, you just can't even go near these, they're just falling to bits, then a lot of the time they're all right with you.
Yeah, and these customers they were very nice, and they were very appreciative of us actually putting their roof back together. Yeah. I think they didn't realise it was like that. But yeah, they were grateful for it being put back into one piece and not just gone, oh, you know what, can't do this, we're off. And their roof's left in a state. But I did, honest, we were on it, and I felt bad saying to you, we're not going to get this done today. We're going to have to come back tomorrow. Because I looked at it Tuesday morning, thought, oh yeah, me and Dean on this. Yeah, we should that sorted. It's only 7 panels this side. We know the slate's a bit tricky. We've got some more slates now. Get on it, take them out, put them back. And then it was becoming apparent as we were taking those out, more were just dropping to bits underneath us. And and then by I think I was talking to you at 3 o'clock going, just no way. It's just not. We need 2 of us back on it tomorrow. And
you can't plan for that. That's just an experience of a bad job, isn't it? Where it's really difficult, and with the best will in the world, there's only so much you can do. I wonder why the slate was so different. Was it like a north-south split? I'm just wondering if sun's on one side more.
It's all under the panels,
weather on the other.
You had a bit of a theory, didn't you, Mike?
When I was looking at it, the outer edges, which weren't under the panels, looked like a more plum-coloured slate, and they do look a bit thicker. And I think when they put the solar in before, I think it was like 14 years ago, so I think because of the way they put the hooks in, they'd have to strip quite a lot of slate out then, and I feel like they may have put back another reclaimed slate in, because they're a different tone colour. Obviously you get some differences with the sunlight, I think, but you could really see a difference in the type of slate in the centre part where the panels were. So I think they put back a reclaimed slate at that point, but it's difficult to tell by the time you're in that much mess with it.
It is, but equally, like what struck me when I was getting the photos is something like that must have had to have happened because there was no copper tingles, or there was nothing there that I could see that were holding those slates back in place. And anyone that's done any slate roofing work just slate roofing work as well as solar slate roofing work, is that you take slates out, but the way that they are fixed to the battens, you can't get to the nails to nail them back in without removing the slits above it, and then to nail those ones back in, you'd have to remove. So you'd have to strip it. The way that they've done it, where it's all actually nailed back in, they will have had to have stripped, like you said, Mike, a massive, pretty much all of it, because you would need to have started from that bottom to then nail them all back all the way up. So I suspect they've probably gone, right, we'll fit your solar on here, but because it was 14 years ago and there probably wasn't, I don't think Genius flashings were around back then, they've kind of gone, well, how am I going to do this? Well, unfortunately, love, we're going to have to strip your roof, put the hooks in, and then they put like a
aluminium flash with sticky back element
with like a glue on it, hasn't it? And it's a bit like you get for the in roof systems, but this was on steroids. Like, it was just unbelievable how tight this was. And so I think you're right. I think there's got to be a reason why those slates were different to the ones on the outside, and I think it's either being repaired. Either the outsides have been repaired because they are open to the elements and they've started to fail within the last 14 years and the whole thing was done with reclaimed slate, or they put better slates on the outside and tried to get rid of a load of rubbish ones on the inside. Or maybe they're even the ones that they stripped off. I don't know. But all I do know is it's cost me an absolute fortune to basically provide nearly 300 slates to that job to fit pretty much 7 panels, because most of them went on one side, which has got to be I've not got the maths to work out what that is slate to panel ratio, but that is not a good one that I can continue pricing on. But
more expensive than the panels themselves.
Yeah, but sometimes these are the things you have to do, and I think anyone entering renewables that is planning to do your own roofing work, or even people like Mike who, I know you do the other bits as well, Mike, but like a lot of people get you in to do the roofing side, like you just can't price that sort of stuff in, and you have to be ready to actually provide the materials and the labour to actually do it right, because ultimately that job is not a write-off, but got to the point where this is actually more important that the brand of my company is protected on this, that we actually, whatever it costs to a degree, needs to be just done to get this to get this done and dusted.
That's it. And normally, like you say, you can see that type of roof a mile afloat. There was one up near Bishop Auckland you did, and we got Richard in to re-roof it.
Yeah.
And you saw that before, and you had that chat with the customer and said, well, actually, makes sense. Let's get it re-roofed, then put the solar in. But like you say, with this one, the roof looked pretty sound.
We're going to interrupt today's show to talk about a new product from Proteus, the sponsors of our lovely little home here on the Renewables Podcast. And this is a Type B RCBO in single module format. And this is a super exciting development, I think, in the world of switchgear for us as installers. This is 10 kA rated and bi-directional with all the right markings and logos on. I'm going to pass this over to my co-host Sam for him to have a look at. See what you make of that, mate.
Yeah, it's. I actually dug out in the unit where it's just next door to where we sat now, an older Proteus RCBO. This is a Type A, and it's a 6 kA one. And the difference in the size is next to nothing. So this is the older one here, and this is the new one. So it's basically the same size, but this is a Type B, and we know there's a lot more that goes into a Type B RCBO than does a Type AC. So it just shows the progression there that Proteus are on, and trying to save us space in these DBs by literally having next to no height difference on the two products.
I know, I mean, the Type B normally would be a couple of modules wide at least, probably more, and they've got it all into one single space is incredible. And I know from speaking with a contractor over on DMs who'd had his MCS assessment recently, was saying that the assessor had said he should have a Type B RCBO feeding into his battery storage system, which is outdoors, which is interesting. So I think we're going to see the growth in application of these things, and it's just nice to see the range of stuff Proteus have got out there for us as installers. And there'll be a link in the description alongside wherever you're watching or listening to this to go off and check that out. Let's jump back to the chat.
We had one 3 weeks ago up in the Lake District, and it was a new roof. So it was a new flat concrete tile. When we looked at it, it was like, well, this will be a doddle. It's fresh tiles, nice and thick, loads to grind out. Then the customer told us the roofing contractors who installed it got chucked off that job like halfway through, and another one came in to finish because they'd messed up something to do with the hips, and I don't know, fully understand. Anyway, when we'd gone to take the concrete tile out, they'd used some massive nails and screwed some of them as well, like through. So the guys are trying to get them out, and I think they've got like the first row 6 hooks in. I'd asked them, how many tiles are broke? Because I'll go and get some. Like, we've broke 4 already. So I was like, what? Like, broken that many already? And it's like, yeah, we just can't get them out. They're just breaking on the corners and all the rest of it. And then as we worked further up,
there was other ones where they'd put them back, where they have the little slithers broken off, where they'd broke them on installation, and it'd just been a bad job fitting it. Even the felt underneath, they hadn't overlapped it far enough, and there's all sorts of other bits you find. But from looking at it, when you first went to survey, you'd think this not going to be a problem. I think we had like maybe 40 tiles go back in on that one, and the ones that have come out, we've put on the roofs at A1-to-1 training. Put a story on about them yesterday because they're still fine for grinding the backs out and stuff. But we never saw that coming. It's not the biggest expense, but it's one of those things that even if you are super cautious, doing all your surveying and trying to be as prepared as you can, stuff just happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Ollie and Dean had it, a job in Wakefield, and a brand new. This guy was basically making his garage bigger and putting a pitched roof on it. And we put 8 panels on each side in landscape, brand new Santoft double Roman tile, something like that. And Ollie was like, "There's got to be an error, like some sort of error with this batch of tiles," because he was like, again, really thick concrete tile, but they were just like you couldn't go near them. And my God, the pile of Santoft tiles I had in the back of there. I think I'm just like a magnet for breaking. Like the Global Renewables just breaks things on every job. And but
don't worry, Jess, I'll bleep that bit.
Yeah,
out. They don't.
No, it's just the nature of it. And the good thing is that the roofer was still there, and he goes, "Yeah, these can be a bit tricky." So they had still like a pallet of tiles, so we didn't have to provide any on that. So that was a good one. But I've had it loads up in Scotland. The corners of the what are they called? The Redland 90s, or there's a specific tile I've come across multiple times where there has got to be some sort of error with how this tile is formed, because it's always the same corner that comes off at the same size, like the same size little chunk. And we were taking off 3 Viridian in-roof panels on a new build, so again, not very old, and we're putting in solar on the front and the back, and the builder had a pallet left over or something of these tiles. I went, "Tell you what, you can just have them," because they were still building some of the houses, and in this batch of the materials, he had like half a pallet or a pallet left over, however many's on a pallet, and so they just dropped him on his drive and said, "We'll just come and collect whatever you don't need." We used the entire pallet. we had to fill in where these Viridians were, but you could not go near these tiles without this corner dropping off. And I was like, I was there on my own with a lad that had never done solar before, and I was kind of teaching him. I was like, and he said, "Mate, I don't think I can actually teach you on this job because this looks like I've never touched a roof before, and I just don't understand what's happening here." And I think it is just the intricacies of using materials that haven't been specifically designed to have solar PV put into them and all this other sort of stuff.
Is that why you've not been back on a roof since?
Yeah, I've got PTSD, honestly.
Were they a flat concrete tiles?
Yeah.
I think I know the ones you mean.
Yeah. But it is, even though it's not, and Mike might hate me for this, but even though it's not the same as being on site, there is a horrible feeling getting these videos and photos, knowing you can do absolutely nothing to help.
Possibly even worse feeling, isn't it?
Because you're just like, I would actually genuinely love to be there on the front line with you, getting this sorted. But I'm literally 2.5 hours away. So it's I think that's the tricky thing when you start having others do jobs for you as well. It's like you want to be leading from the front and helping people get over problems, but equally, if you want your business to expand, you just can't. You can't be everywhere.
That is true, and that's one of the things we're going through in our business and my job as well. I have that exact same frustration, and it's giving people in your team the responsibility and the confidence to know they can deal with it, but also stepping out yourself as well, because otherwise you do just end up taking over and solving all these problems rather than letting people develop those skills. So it's really difficult. I find it difficult. And we had one with a battery storage system we'd put in 2 weeks ago, where we was looking at like the PAS document and stuff, and I'd been through all of this and made peace in my own mind that it was okay. I was really pleased that when Matty was out doing the job, he actually raised that question back to me like, should we even be fitting this system? I think you've maybe surveyed it wrong because the battery capacity is too big and knowing the pass and stuff. So I was like, you're wrong, but I'm really glad you've said that because it shows you got the confidence to come back with those kind of things. Now, I don't think he would have done even maybe a year ago. He'd have just got on with doing it and said no. So I think that's something when you are running a business in the roles we've now got, Sam, that having people you can rely on to flag stuff back to you as well, be it a roof that's crumbling apart or something they're installing and not quite happy with, that is really important rather than just point and shoot, fit and forget.
I think that's a really, really interesting point, that, Matt, because I think from both sides of the table, that can be quite hard to do because as the boss, if you like, you want people to come to you with their opinions on things like that. But on the employee side, they're like, well, I don't really want to question him. But actually, we want that. Like, if you want people to start taking account for an ownership of stuff, just because I've been in surveying, it doesn't mean that I've missed that all the slates are knackered, or that I've missed that there should be an extra smoke alarm there, or this, that, and the other. And I think that's the key thing for employees and people in your business to move up through the business is like starting to show that initiative to go, you might have missed this on the survey. Apologies if there's a reason why, but is there a reason why we aren't doing it like this? Cable route or something like that, or like I say, a location for the battery or an extra smoke alarm that's needed, or all these sorts of things where I could have been surveying that and had something else in my mind and missed it. So just because I've said the battery needs to go here, these are the smoke alarms you need, it's kind of like, but also you've been on the courses, or you've done the certificates, you've done this, so use some of that knowledge to just sense check what I've done as well. And I think that can be quite difficult to maybe get everyone on board because people don't want to second guess the quote unquote boss, but we want them to in some cases.
We do in our business sizes. I think in bigger companies like your Octopuses and stuff, they maybe don't even have that. Something that would happen maybe. People do just go to work to get paid, don't they, and want to fit the kit and go home. That particular instance is probably a podcast episode in that because we fitted like 110 kilowatt hours of storage. Like the PAS maxes out at 40 and 80. But obviously it maxes out at 200 square metres as well, and this place was ginormous. But there is a bigger question in there because it does also say to apply the PAS on, or the principles of it onto these bigger places. But I think that allows for scope to grow the storage systems as a result as well. That's my interpretation of it, but people might see that different.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that because if you've got a bigger property, you may need a larger amount of storage. So I think that's right.
I mean, he had a ground source heat pump, 2 air conditioning units, a swimming pool, and 2 heat pumps. So he had quite a lot of consumption going on, and he's rinsing that battery dry every day. So
let's face it, no battery's going to be big enough for that size of installation, is it?
No, but it's how you deal with that because it's still a residential property, and I know they're concerned about all that stored energy in one place. So you've still got to kind of factor that in, and you wonder maybe they do just want everyone limited to 40 kilowatt hours inside or whatever. Don't know, but I didn't see it like that, and I was pleased Matty asked the question there because I think that's one of the things that does need to come back for all the reasons you just said, Sam. And when Mike and Ollie or whoever's working for us, I want them to know that if there's something they're not happy with, let me know about it because we'd rather deal with it at that point than deal with the consequences of not being told something and job gets done wrong.
It's important to have that sense check between you on site as well. Like this week, it's just referring to, I think we nearly missed the fact it was 2 strings on that first job this week. But by having a conversation, we went, let's just go back through the notes. Oh yeah, it is definitely 2 strings. Because theoretically it might have been able to do it in 1 string, but when we just checked back through the notes and had a conversation between us, we went, oh yeah, we're all on the same page now. Right, we know what we're doing.
Yeah, can you imagine if that's how Mike told me that he'd wired it all in 1 string?
Sounds just like, what have you done now?
Imagine I was sat here and went, yeah, we had a look and it was definitely 1 string. I'd have been like, oh my God. That would have been a hell of a way to tell me, Mike. Yeah. But no, and I think that leads on to another point of best displaying that sort of information for people. And that's something that we've just had a process meeting here today with the office side and with Dean, sort of on the management side of the guys on site. And it's like, how do we give people the right information so that how many strings it is and where stuff's going, how do we give that to people in the best way? Because when you move from being on site on every job and you've been there, you've spoken to the customer, how do you how do you get that over to people without them having to watch a half an hour video of you talking about all these other options that the customer hasn't decided to go with, and how do you actually get all of that over to them? And I think, and also without having to write it all down for like 2 hours trying to get it all on paper, that, you know, the guys get to site and just go, right, what we're doing here then, and then not read any of it because it's like 2 sides of A4.
Yeah.
So it's quite a tricky conundrum, that, because what I find, and you might find it, you guys might find it as well, is that customers will say to you like little specific details about where they prefer things to be run, and things that need to be taken into account, like, you know, don't let the cat out or something. You know, there's like all these, in domestic, there's all these little intricate things that you kind of go, right, well, where the heck am I going to tell? Where am I going to note down with the guys? Like, if I tell them now the job isn't for 2 months, and I've got to try and remind myself to tell them not to let the cat out. But where do I write it? Like, you know, that just stupid little things like that can end up being quite a headache.
Yeah, we use ServiceMate with the little check boxes for that. And the customer today, actually, when they finished and they were leaving, the last words to Matty and Nathan were, I thought I was getting a gateway. And they were like, what? And they messaged me straight away with some swear words saying there should have been a gateway on this job. We finished and now we're not going to be leaving it. I was like, what? No, there isn't. And reading back through the comms with the customer in the job file, and they'd said, oh, we'll do away with it because we've got a motorhome, and if there's a power cut, we'll just go into that. It's not a deal breaker. We'll save the money and take it off. I was like, well, he said it on there, so I don't know what he's on about. Go back to him and just ask that, and he's like, oh yeah, I did say that. But that's the kind of thing that you might miss through that. There's the project we're doing for Dan Bryant, where we've just had the solar panels that have been donated to that. They were going to be JA solars that are like 40 volts. They're now Canadian solars, which are like 54 volts. So we now need more strings. And because it's not a business project, I put that straight in the group chat with the installers on that. We need more strings on the roof now. Let's no one forget, because that's the worry, isn't it? Like, you're up there wiring everything in and then wondering why your MPPTs are on fire or something.
Not a good look on that one, is it?
No, it wouldn't be. No. So it is communication, isn't it? It's how you best manage it. And as your team grows, you're a bigger company than we are, that's even harder. And you imagine some of these massive firms, that must be a right headache for them, trying to get kits out for their installers.
Yeah, I think that initial point of contact and that like information on the job, that either sets it to be a successful job or sets it to be a bit of a tricky one, because if, you know, say you were on site, Mike, and there's literally no details, not spoken to anybody, and you're kind of just having to make it up as you go on. The customer said, oh yeah, I think it's all going there. And you're kind of like, right, okay, and you start fitting it, and then you realise actually it wasn't supposed to go there, and that's going to use 30 metres of extra cable, or, you know, they've said that they're definitely having a gateway, so you've gone back to the unit to pick up a gateway or whatever. All this sort of stuff, and you can, things can just, like those slates can just crumble because you've not been given the right information, and that's. I don't think when you start up a business you really think about all that sort of stuff has been a problem. You just think, oh yeah, well I'll just WhatsApp people, but if you're running multiple projects a week, that can just be
you can soon get lost in the chain of WhatsApp, can't
exactly.
it? Or, you know, in email chains, and
it's also stressful trying to do that, isn't it? You kind of like, I don't know if I can manage all of those jobs just over WhatsApp. You need to have some sort of processes in place, which is really tricky.
It's really hard. I guess especially as businesses are growing and you haven't got like contract managers, project managers and stuff, and all this falling back at your feet probably, and it is in my business. You know, it's not easy to make sure that's right, and we don't get that right every time. There's projects that you've been on with us, Mike, and we've had materials missing, and that falls back to me not ordering the right number of hooks or even the right hooks. You remember the twist ones when I didn't get those and got straight through normal portrait hooks. But yeah, these things can happen. It's how you deal with it and react to it sometimes. And I know from speaking to a customer who'd had a heat pump installed by one of the big energy retailers, the way they seem to deal with it is just have way too many materials delivered on every project, as in like enough to do the whole street, and then like either leave them with the customer or take them back away. So they're not making the effort to get that finite arrangement that we're going to make sure all the kit, and maybe a little bit extra but not too much, is on every project. They just send in the kitchen sink. That's how they're approaching it.
That's how I genuinely think that's how some of these big solar companies do it, because I remember when I first started on my own and trying to get back into renewables after being in it for the majority of my career before going out on my own. and I was subcontracting to some of the big companies. I was only really doing the batteries because we were doing a lot. We were kind of quite trusted with the battery manufacturer that they were using, and we got recommended to them. And you'd go to the job, and you'd be traveling all over the country doing this, and you'd go to the job, and there was literally CEF on the drive. Like, there was the entirety of CEF on the drive. And you're like, the distribution board's there, it's got spare weighs in it, the battery's going under there, and you're thinking, I'm in the money here. Like, and there'd be like whole rolls of like twin and earth and like flex and just like 4 or 5 isolators, and you're like, why have you given me all this? And they're just like, yeah, keep it on your van, and then you've got some spares for the next job when you do that. Because I'd be doing them like all week and then the following week, but they would never go, oh, just use, we haven't ordered as much this time, just use some of that stock you've got. I've still got a box out there of like plastic distribution boards and stuff, which obviously I can't really use now. And just stuff that I daren't throw away, not because I think they're going to come after me, but it don't feel right throwing it away when it's, you know, they're maybe 15, 20 quid each, and you're like, God, they must have, needless to say, they're not in business anymore. I can't tell why, but...
Is that really a process that's been over-engineered on the computer, and the computer's just spat it out and goes, that's the job kit for that job, right, that's what needs to go out, and no one's ever thought to question it?
I think it's this sometimes maybe the speed that it's been priced, because, you know, I mean, that's another thing that we face is trying to get the speed of the quotations right out there, and you can template quite a lot of it, but it's the last mile bit, isn't it? It's like the last 10-15% where you've got to really think about, how am I going to get this cable running? What type of cable does it need to be? What do I need to make a change in their distribution board because I'm putting smoke alarms in, and I now need a type A RCD because it's electronics. I'm doing work. All those little things you're kind of thinking and you're going, right. And that's the bit that takes the time. And if you're lucky enough, you've also got leads coming in on the back end that are also expecting a quote back within almost sometimes that day. And you're like, I can't do a bespoke quote for you in that time. And I think like I say, some companies just have, all right, they want a 10 kilowatt hour Sonnen battery, which it was at the time. That's the kit. You know, they might underprice a couple, and they might overprice a couple, but it averages out. And like I say, maybe the fact that they're not around anymore maybe speaks volumes for that type of pricing, but that's how they did it.
Yeah, the feedback the customer got from the engineers who'd fitted this heat pump, it was exactly that. They just send these kits to every job. Like, we can't keep taking all of the stuff away after because we've got nowhere to put it and nothing to do with it. And this customer was glad of it because he was doing up his brother's house and they were repiping it as a little DIY project. He's like got bundles of 15, 22, 28 mil pipe, loads of elbows, had the whole place repiped at the expense of his heat pump install. So it came in on that, but you just wonder, like, there's a lot of waste there, isn't there? It's like not really using resources.
You do see it on building sites when they're clearing the sites, though, and the stuff that goes in those skips. You're like, can't throw that away.
Full sheets of like OSB and that going in there, and it's a good job my dad isn't about, because he's a proper skip jumper. But even I've had it before where I'm like, it might be because I'm morphing into him, but you go past a skip and you're like, there's a half a sheet of like OSB. I'm like, it's just not been touched. It's not even got any cement on it or anything. And you walk past it, and sometimes I say to the lads, is this just getting chucked? Oh yeah, we're just clearing that room out. We have to just to chuck it all. And you're like, do you mind if I take it? No, you can take it, fill your boots, clear some space in the skip. And I sometimes come away with like a couple of sheets or like part sheets of OSB, some 4x2 and all this other sort of stuff. And I'm like, I can't believe they're throwing all this. But like you say, Matt, they maybe just haven't got the space to store it all. And they're like, well, what are we going to do with it?
Dealing with it,
It just scales the problem, doesn't it? It's one job that we're seeing, but there's probably dozens like it somewhere else where they're all the same company.
And let all this stuff pile up in your shed for years and clog your shed up. In fact, testament to that this week, I needed 2 RJ11 plugs from my son's Xbox 360 controller. I thought, I've got 2 of them in the shed. Been there 25 years, and the RJ11 crimper made him up a cable. The crimper dropped to bits as the crimper was gone that brittle. Like them 2 plugs just
it was there.
Sorted.
That's like that Instagram reel with the guy where he goes to get that bit of wood he's kept for years to fix a bed. He's like in his element going to grab it. That was your moment there.
Yeah, that was my moment.
Saved the family.
I'm pretty sure that was my dad in that film. I'm pretty sure that's him. Yeah. But no, I think that's a lot. That's something that, you know, companies do face. It's like, how do you how do you actually enable it? Because the last thing you want is people stood there not being able to get on with the job, because that's frustrating for the people on site. It's frustrating for the customer because the job's never going to run over, and it's frustrating for the company that have sold the job because you're not getting necessarily the value for money out of the people on site because they're having to either do something a longer way because they haven't quite got the right materials, or they're having to shoot off to go and get something. You know, it might be half an hour there, half an hour back. You know, tiles are a massive one in solar. You know, trying to find, especially an odd one from the reclaim yard. I've had it before in sort of the Midlands or slightly lower than that, where I think it was like an hour there and an hour back. That's 2 hours out of a day for someone to go and get 5 tiles.
Yeah,
You're like,
it's like those deltas. I mean, you can't even match them up sometimes, can you?
There was them pointy ones.
Yeah.
With the parakeets. I went off 2 hours. That was me down
Of course, yeah.
in Sussex, an hour's drive to try and find
And
some
we
of
used
them
all
damn
them, I
things.
think, didn't we?
Yeah, I did use them all. I got more than I thought we'd need, but we did use them all.
yeah, you're always better. Like we've at the back of us here in the little car park area. There's literally I've accumulated so many different tiles. There's not actually that many of them, like each individual one, but I always get maybe like 10 extra. Because the cost of the tile is nothing compared to having to do that 2 hour round trip again, and it's surprising when you crack on with a job how many tiles you can end up breaking over the course of it, and I don't think that's something that people realise in terms of like installers realise until they actually get on with doing solar PV.
It's been a learning journey for us. We never even thought that would be a problem when we first started doing it, and I've learned quickly it is. Trying to match tiles, find tiles in the local area, especially when we travel around such a lot. The reclaimed yard that's not too far from here that we use is a really good one if you are local. But when you're working off pitch, off patch, you have no idea what the local reclamation roofing companies are, have you? You're kind of working from Google and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
And you can see that that's probably why a lot of these bigger companies maybe approach it the way they do, with like managing risk in their projects, that if we just send loads of gear, might cost us a bit more on every job, but overall it's probably better value than having people chasing around trying to grab bits, as you've just said, Sam.
Well, it's trying to get it's actually knowing what to ask for as well with some of the tiles, because some of these really old ones don't have any type of markings on where you can tell a brand or anything like that. And I actually put a tile into ChatGPT to see if that could tell me. Like a picture of it, but it didn't really give me any proper information. I thought this could be an absolute superpower if it could, and it was the Marley Ludlows.
Oh, the Ludlows, yeah.
And it was just the most freak of nature how I managed to find out that it was this Marley Ludlow tile, and it was I was looking for a different tile on a job that's going to be a nightmare. I can smell that it's going to be a nightmare. We haven't done it yet. And I'd given up the night before. I'd left my laptop on. I'd turned my laptop back on after the guys on the local job tours had sent me a photograph of the tile that they needed. And I turned my laptop on, went onto my browser, and it was there in front of me on the web page. And I was like, hang on, it can't be the same measurements. Looked at exactly the same one. It's just a freak of nature that it was there. And I went out and bought a lottery ticket that night.
It's a smiling on you that day. That doesn't happen, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Mine just comes up with an error and shuts down and turns itself off for a few days.
But the roofing side is a tricky one, and is outside of most of our comfort zones as electricians if you've not done that type of work. And I think it's a massive learning curve going into that side of it, and something that you can't really learn other than just cracking on and doing it, and be prepared to actually spend more time than what you think repairing stuff, going and getting things. And it's very, very difficult, almost impossible to price that in, because some jobs you go there and there's a place 5 minutes down the road, like all them slates that MKM had them in literally 5 minutes away from the job. But if that job would have been in a different location and it was even if it was just a half an hour trip there and back, that would probably be the difference between that job getting done or not. And you've got another day with another load of travel, another load of labour, and all the rest of it. So all these things, you just can't be all across it on every job.
No, there's just no way you can do that. And Yeah, it's a challenge for sure, but we must like it. Twisted Mike's arm. He said he's coming back now, aren't you, mate? You'll be back at it next week.
Yeah, I'll be straight back on next
Now we've
week.
had a bit of therapy on the renewables podcast to install a therapy session.
Yeah, well, we've got Dan's roof to get done, haven't we? Dan Wright.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've got to get that done. So I'll be back for that one.
Yeah,
Come out of retirement.
Yeah.
Luckily, it's bonfire night that day, so if we get it wrong, there'll be fireworks on down the street. Pre-built in. But yeah, no, that's going to be a good one. Yeah, a few people going down to that, so should be a nice experience for everybody, all been well, and look after Dan and his family.
Definitely, I think the cause and the reason for doing that is more important than anything really. It's you're having that giving back to him that it's quite touching.
Covering those bills, it can be a real stress when you're not, when it could be something other than being ill. It could be you lose a job, or you lose this, that, and the other, and suddenly that £200 a month or £150 a month, whatever it is you're paying or more, can just feel like just an absolute tidal wave every single month. So yeah, getting that your own generation and own storage is something that really, really helps.
Yeah, I don't think we really spoke about that. But original intention was to just get him like 6 panels and a solar inverter. We were just going to look to do it to help him out, and we chatted with Corey about it and a few others, and things started to grow pretty quickly, and all of a sudden he's getting a brand new Give Energy all-in-one 2 gateway, 28 panels, EV charger. I think someone's coming to do his garden up as well now, and it's just like grown astronomically. And he's actually coming up to the open day at A1-1 next week, as I'd said, I'm picking your all-in-one 2 up, Give Energy next door. So he's like, I'll come and say thanks to him when your open day's on. So well, by next door, I meant like 3 miles away. It's not like literally next door, and we can't just walk in. It's a massive warehouse. So yeah, he's coming up, so that'd be nice to see him. It's good that he's up about on his feet and stuff.
Yeah.
Nice little project to be involved with, and it'd be good to see Dan next week.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I think we've got another little topic and avenue to dive into, haven't we? Now we've had a good catch up and a bit of a moan, we can go on to...
Yeah, so I think this was going to be the original reason for the podcast, and then Mike get crashed. But no,
One podcast to another podcast.
Yeah, pedultry. And I get asked quite a bit, and you guys might be the same, about domestic wind turbines, because usually by people that have already got solar PV and battery, because they start to see these holes in their generation, certainly during the winter time, but also thinking about, well, how could I potentially generate some more energy at night to reduce how much I'm buying in at night, and to just keep that generation flowing all the time. And I've not done any domestic wind turbines as yet. There's a couple of people I follow online that have done some, but they always seem to be quite large and quite ominous in people's gardens. And one of the main things that stood in our way, doing a couple of wind turbines where we'd priced things up and we kind of thought we got a good kit together, but it'd been kind of the planning permission around it. And there's a couple of things with the wind turbines that I wanted to kind of speak about a little bit to try and clarify a few things. And so I've got a couple of notes from the planning portal around it. And there's 2 really ways you can do it. You can have it as a standalone system where it's stood up in your garden, and it's not attached to your house, but it wires obviously back to your house. But the other way is you can have it bolted to your house. And you'd be forgiven for thinking, well, what happens if that's spinning and the kids run out? There's some quite strict rules as to how high the blades have to be, but also how tall that wind turbine can actually be to be compliant with like a permitted development rights. And so that's been the tricky side of doing a wind turbine on a job, as well as the intricacies of having a G98, G99, G100 compliant inverter to allow it to be grid connected. Because a lot of these wind turbines that you see online, like some of the air tub stuff, there's I think it's Test Up or something like that have one as well. There's quite a few different manufacturers that do it, but a lot of them are for people that are maybe more off grid, and they can just have their own sort of generation that's not interacting with with the actual grid. But have you guys had any people ask about sort of domestic wind turbines?
You go first, Mike.
I've had people asking me, so you could just add this bit generation. I'm sure I could just get a bit more out of it on these days in winter when it's not sunny but it's windy. But I've always, when I've looked at them, I think it's always been difficult to get it on a small scale. And then I've seen a few videos online where they're quite noisy. And then the vibrations actually end up going through the house on people. And I've seen these go up in my area years ago, and I've seen them come down again, and they've not gone back up. So you think, why are they not still up there? Is there a reason? Are they not as effective, or are they noisy, or they just fail? I don't know, because they're a moving part. And then it often gets talked about on the big scale stuff that they require a lot of maintenance. So I don't know if you found that.
Yeah, in terms of inquiries, there's a couple of customers who've asked. One is Will down in Wales. They've asked both at their business and at their home, and it's something that I've not really progressed because I don't know a great deal about. It's the truth, and it was interesting you saying, Sam, that it can be permitted development still, because I just assumed it would have to go through a full planning application. We have retrospectively added battery storage to a customer's home that already had a wind turbine. So they were a bit unique. It's on a farm, but they live in a residential dwelling on a lane up to it. And in the farmer's field, like across this lane, they've got I think it's 6 kilowatt, or the inverters anyway, 6 kilowatt at their point of connection. And they were old Sunny Boy inverters, I think. He's had it in like 14 years, something like that. And there must be some other bits of kit with the wind turbine that does something, because I think when they're spinning, they ramp up and down quite substantially with the voltages quite quickly, and there has to be some buffering, I think, to the inverters, because it's not the same as PV where it's pretty consistent at the voltages it's outputting. So I think something in with that.
Yeah,
but we did manage to tie that in with the battery storage, so they were getting the cake and eating it, because when it's either sunny or windy, his batteries are charging up overnight. He's got the sunshine during the day. Very rarely he's eating into his actual battery sock. He's got that there more for the backup if there's a power cut. Out in a rural farm, it happens a bit. So he's living the best life with a combined system. So you can see why people want that. I just assumed the planning would be too difficult for all the reasons you'd said, Mike, with the noise and the view of it. And I think, was it Corey who stuck one on an arrow boat and it rattled him to death?
You had to try and stop it to get it down again, I think.
I remember watching him doing something along those lines. But it's a great strategy. It'd be fantastic if it could be made to work. You wonder if like these little, you see the ones at the side of the motorway, they're innovating now, whereas the wagons go past, they spin like a cylinder rather than a windmill type thing. Yeah, like a vertical thing. If something like that could work, I'm thinking down the side of someone's, like between the new build houses, down those little passages where the wind whistles past. It'd be something like that's an option.
It's quite interesting. Just as I was preparing for this, trying to find some of the information on it, and there's just like some really weird rules around. I mean, the planning system in the UK is odd anyway, but like this little one here for standalone ones, so the ones that are kind of like stood up in your garden. It says only the first installation of any wind turbine would be permitted development, and only if there is no existing air source heat pump at the property. Additional wind turbines or air source heat pumps at the same property requires an application for planning permission. So if you've got an air source heat pump at the front of the property, for example, and then you wanted to put a wind turbine down at the back of the property in the bit of field, because you've got an air source heat pump somewhere, you'd have to apply for a wind turbine. It just seems a bit...
Yeah, it sounds odd on the face of it, but is that to do with the noise rating?
Maybe, yeah,
so
maybe.
I was thinking, is it the aesthetics or the noise? It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it, that?
And it says the highest part of the standalone wind turbine must not exceed 11.1 metres. Now, 11.1 metres is high. Yeah. Which is good. But when I was having a look at some of the design stuff for it in preparation for this, there's some really interesting calculations that you need to do with almost like the backdrafts and how the wind is hitting that property, which slightly makes it a bit more technical than just slinging up a wind turbine in wherever, and makes me think that actually wind turbines on properties might not actually be that good, because if the wind is hitting the property usually from the front and it's kind of deflecting off the top of the roof, and then a bit like a car when they put them in the wind tunnels, you could end up with the wind almost completely missing the wind turbine. And so when you have these properties that say, look, it's windy up here all the time, it's like, it might be, but is there somewhere that these can actually go to capture that wind? Or are we just going to be putting it on and seeing it spinning every now and again without it actually being useful?
Yeah, I mean, that's it, isn't it? It's like same as shading from trees or big buildings with our solar panels. If you're not putting it in where the wind's going to be passing through, you're not getting the best value from it, are you? And it's on a residential street, you're just wondering about the noise and view, not just from your own point of view, but that of your neighbours as well, and the vibrations. I guess this technology's maybe moved on quite a bit from some of these. I'm thinking of the wind turbine, and the guy that we've done a job for, it was really noisy. And it was quite a lot of vibration around where it was. So yeah, I think that's a challenge to get over. But if it can be made to work, and there's a way of getting them on buildings to capture wind, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Because I don't think they're massively expensive for what they are. From certainly the ones I've seen.
To buy, depending on what scale you go to, they're about between 400 and 700 quid, and that is usually. The ones I looked at that didn't include the inverter, but it include like the controller that you were mentioning that does some of that funky stuff with the voltages and all this sort of stuff, but also allows plug-in for like wind meters and things, so you can get a bit of information on how it's performing for the wind speeds and things. So it's actually worth a bit of a punt, I think, for some people. You kind of like, well, if you're spending 15, 20 grand on a solar PV and battery storage system, there's obviously more to it than just the £700 wind turbine. You've got the installation of that and the wiring of that and everything else. But, you kind of at that point where you kind of go, you know what, if I've got the space for it, there's nobody around, I haven't got an air source heat pump, I can do it on a permitted development. I'm not in a conservation area, because that's obviously another one on here about it not being in a conservation area because you've not got the permitted development rights in that area. Then it's actually, do we just give it a go and just try it? You'd obviously have to have the money there to do it, but I think the vertical ones look really quite cool, because you haven't got the same, what they call swept area, because it says on here, and again, I think this is quite large, the swept area of any standalone wind turbine blade must be no more than 3.8 meters, 3.8 square meters. That's like that's the decent. That's not a bad. It was like 1 point something, nearly 2 meters a blade. Is that two? Yeah. So it's like that's quite a large blade to have flying around in the back of your bungalow, isn't it? It's like, especially 11 meters up. It's like
yeah. I actually wonder why there's not more of them about. There must be. It maybe is just that the noise puts people off. I don't know.
But do you remember? I'm trying to think how long ago it was, but you used to be able to buy them in B&Q.
Oh yes, you did.
Yeah,
you did.
I don't think you could buy them to install yourself, but they were sort of selling them to be installed from B&Q. They all almost had this sort of stand there where you go and order this wind turbine, but I don't think it ever took off.
No, you see a lot of the little dyno ones on like motorhomes and caravans and stuff as well. When they're going on off-grid trips, combining solar with a bit of wind. So it's a good strategy. But it's just, you maybe scratched onto the surface something there, Sam, as to why that isn't a bigger thing than it maybe should be. As we get to this time of year, and that westerly wind starts kicking up and the sun's dropping down below the horizon, you keep generating, can't you?
And it might be one of the things where people actually think it's more complicated to get approval than it is. I mean, on here, the distance between the ground level and the lowest part of any wind turbine blade must not be less than 5 meters. Now, 5 meters on the surface for me seems quite low. Like if you're carrying some, I know that's kind of usually like the eaves of a property, usually around a 5 meter. But I don't know, just this thing spinning around at a rate of knots. I'm thinking that bottom of a house doesn't feel like bottom of the roof of a house doesn't feel high enough for that to be out of the way. But just thinking your kid has a kite or something and it just whips them up. But
my kids would be kicking footballs up there to see if they could hit the bloody blades. Never mind the kite.
That's true. That is true. But yeah, there's some really interesting things about it. And every time I look into wind turbines, when someone contacts me about them, and that, I think I'm definitely going to have a look at this, because as the solar market kind of gets more and more compact with things. You always have to look at these little things to make yourself stand out. And I think just entertaining the fact that you could potentially put a wind turbine in somewhere for somebody, and some of this stuff around it, I think can really be important. And one thing that you kind of have to be ready to do in the renewable sector is look forward all the time. And wind turbines aren't anything new, but maybe that is the next step in people's generation. Who knows? I don't know.
Would you consider one at your home, Mike?
Do you know what? I have thought about it in the past, but then everything about it, there's no, like you say, there's no real concrete information saying it will do this or this is the way to do it. I think you have to do a lot of research to sort of find out what you really need and what would work. And I think you said that there's almost these wind surveys to work out where it's actually got to be sited, and then 11 metres up in your garden, maybe your neighbours might start to say
it's permitted, mate. Tough luck.
Yeah.
It's the thing with the solar, we can give that data, can't we? So if a customer wants a rough idea of what they can expect out of their system, regardless of what the numbers are around that, we can give them a rough, pretty decent idea what it's going to do. You wonder, maybe that data is out there for wind turbines. I don't know. I'm assuming it isn't, but maybe that's the reason that there's just not a way to research how it's going to behave.
With the weather data that's out there, you'd think there must be a fairly reliable source now to work that out, but I don't know.
I think there is. I think you can get a bit like an irradiance map, that you can get a wind speed map, and a bit like you hear on the big offshore wind or onshore wind turbines, you can end up with them going too fast. And I think the maintenance thing is a bit of a problem, because with solar, yes, you've got your electrical checks and things, but you've not got any moving parts on the bits that are so hard to reach. In terms of like the panels, you've not got any moving parts. So actually, having to every 6 months drop the wind turbine, crank the wind turbine down to give it a dose of WD-40 is maybe more than your average customer wants to do. But then equally, there's maybe other things in there like maintenance on it and stuff. But then if it's only like a 5 kilowatt one, is the money in it? Is the customer going to get the sort of money out of it that you're going to have to charge them to go and maintain it? So I think the domestic wind turbines are there for people that want it, rather than you offering it as a solution to someone's energy problems. I think you've got to want it because it is what it is, not because you want to save loads and loads of money by having it, and you're seeing it as like this is definitely going to pay itself off in X amount of years. And I think what supports that now is that they are quite cheap to get. And, you're maybe not looking at the 15 grand mark for a full system. You may be at, maybe 5 grand, or I don't know what it'd end up being, depending on how much the inverters are and everything else about it. But you're looking at a much lower price point for maybe like a 5 kilowatt wind turbine. But how often does it hit 5 kilowatts? Who knows? Is it just tapping away at 100 watts all the time? And you think, well, God, that's a hell of a cost for 100 watts every hour.
I do have a bit on the data, because we've had this system of Andrews in now it's one of the first jobs we did, and that thing kicks out so much power pretty much all the time. And you need to remember, it's like 24 hours a day as well. Yeah. Even when it's not especially windy, it's still doing something, and very often it's up to its full maximum rating, even like 14 years after it went in. And he was one of the first people having like a residential style system put in back then, and it paid for itself, I think he said, in 3 years.
Really?
So ever since then, he's been in sort of profit from it, and that he's still, there's like a feed-in tariff equivalent that he's getting based on his generation, not just on what he's exporting. So there was a deal like that at the time for when he got his. I think he's on a nice little package there, which is why he started looking at the battery storage to kind of double his bubble, really, like everyone's doing with the solar side of things. But yeah, very much so. I think it does, based on what he's told me, more than pays. And I'm pretty sure it's a 6 kilowatt. It's a big wind turbine. And there's another story in that we actually installed a battery storage system for one of the guys who fitted that wind turbine, unbeknown to us, like 2-3 months later. Was just talking to this customer who's like retired. So what do you used to do? He was, I fit wind turbines. So this conversation builds. We was working at a place with wind turbine.
Yeah.
So, where was it? Oh, I fitted that one.
Really?
But yeah, Andrew has these people as well coming out maintaining that. I think it's once a year where a specialist company come in, they check all of the bearings and whatnot on the turbine itself, and then all the gear and even the Sunny Boy inverters, which is still chugging
running,
away.
yeah.
If anyone's interested, it is on our YouTube channel, I think, I install, where we fitted a Give Energy all-in-one alongside that system. But I'll have a little look further into the data on that and see because we can see what the wind's actually doing all year round, so I'll try and get a figure from it.
I think that's the key thing. It's 24 hours, but it's also 365 days. I think that's the key thing, because solar, we're losing that winter generation. Some of the systems do next to nothing this time of year, and I think that's quite hard for customers to cope with when they spent that money on a system, and they kind of like, you say to them, look, it's an average really over the year that you need to see it. You need to make hay whilst it's sunny, because the winter time you're not necessarily going to have the same generation. Obviously you can charge and discharge the batteries from the grid and all this sort of stuff, but actually your own generation, maybe something like this is the key. But I'll just whiz through these points on for anyone interested in the wind turbine side of things for the building mounted ones. So bolted to the side of the building, just so that people have some of the info. So the permitted development rights for the building mounted ones only apply to detached buildings. So you can't do it on like a terrace block or a set of flats or something like that. The installation must not be sited on safeguarded land. So probably things like I don't know what safeguarded means, but probably like the conservation areas and all that sort of specialist land. Only it's got the same rule around only it being the first wind turbine or air source heat pump on the property. So I think there's something in that, Mike, about the look of the property. I think that's probably something to do with it. No part, including the blades of the building mounted wind turbine, should protrude more than 3 meters above the highest part of the roof, excluding the chimney, or exceed the overall height, including building hub and blade of 15 meters, whichever is lesser. So it basically can't stick above say like the ridge line of the property, because it doesn't include the chimney, or exceed an overall height, including the building and hub and blade, of 15 meters. So I don't fully understand that, because surely if it's below the height of the building, but yeah, so it can't be more than 15 metres in height. The distance between ground level and the lowest part of the wind turbine blade must not be less than 5 metres, so same as the standalone one. No part of the building mounted wind turbine, including the blades, can be within 5 metres of any boundary. So you start getting into that territory where it's like 4.5 metres, and you're like, can we get away with this? The swept area, again, of the blade must be no more than 3.8 metres squared. There's the conservation area bit, as you might expect. And then there's some other bits which were on the other sheet about the blades can't be reflective. Every time it spins, it just firing sunlight at you. And if you don't want the wind turbine anymore, you have to take it down as quickly as possible. So that
keep it as an ornament.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
And be sited so far as practical to minimise its effect on the external appearance of the building and its effects on the amenity of the area. So, yeah, interesting.
That 5 metre one is what it would rule it out at my garden without it pretty much being banged centre in the lawn, in the back garden. Just it's your typical new build garden, 5 metres to each side.
It didn't actually say that on the, unless I missed it. It didn't actually say that about the 5 metre boundary thing on the standalone one. That was the house.
Okay.
I think it's maybe because you've maybe got a neighbour next to you.
Right.
Whereas if you've maybe got the one where you can have it standalone,
that restriction's not there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're learning as we go with this.
That's
there's going to be one at Oval HQ. I might have just got a cheap one and just had a little play with it.
Yeah. It's certainly hearing about that one, Mark. It's given me more confidence that maybe actually it can be done on a domestic scale. I've always kind of thought it's probably not something, you probably do it on an agricultural property, or obviously these large scale ones. But I've always thought, because they're not out there, you don't see them, thinking on those small scale, are they really viable? And a lot of the information online sort of says they're not, but if you've actually got customers that's got real data, it does give me more confidence that
he's made it work. He's got himself a plug-in hybrid car, don't have any energy bills all year round, got rid of his oil heating. It's all solar, battery storage, wind turbine. There'll be a little bit of grid in there when it's sunny and not windy, but largely speaking, most of the year he's not consuming hardly anything.
It does feel like if you could just cover that sort of background 300 watt usage all the time as well, it'd actually have its place.
That's it. It's constantly spinning, even when it's a relatively calm day. And he's up on a hilltop in Scarborough, north of Scarborough. It's always windy up there.
Yeah.
Out near the coast as well. So yeah, it's done a really good job for him. He raves about it, and that's what actually led him. He's saying about the gateway drug to renewables is usually EV chargers or whatever. His was renewables power through a wind turbine that then led him towards solar, the batteries, and the electric vehicle. So he got the vehicle at the end, but it's like people come into different routes with this kind of stuff.
Because he's seen that excess of generation for how can I utilise this best?
He's seen the money. He's had the money build up and thought, what can we do to get better value from it all?
Yeah, we've just finished a project where the wind turbine is actually more of an artistic ornament. So it's from Italy. It's the first one in the UK to be installed. We haven't installed it or anything. We just integrated the battery with it. It's probably similar to yourself, Mark. We just integrated the battery within it, and there's actually two supplies to it. One to bring the power back from the wind turbine, but one where you can actually just turn it on and it'll spin it.
Oh, wicked.
so that you can have the appearance of it. And that's like the most anti-green thing that I've ever heard. Where you could just have, my mum and dad are coming, turn it on, turn the wind turbine on. And they're just like, right, okay, that's pretty cool, but I'm more interested in it generating the power than I am just it spinning. But yeah, it looks like a really, really nice, it looks really nice, but I don't know if it'd be nice enough for me to use power to spin it. I just don't know if that would be the case. But
they can't live in Yorkshire. There must be somewhere further.
No, they're not in Yorkshire.
Yorkshire people don't waste power spinning wind
a Yorkshireman
turbines.
will be up there pushing it round.
They would as well. They would as well.
But no, that's my little. As I learn more about it, because if there's a bit of money in the over renewables kitty, I might just have a little punt and just have a little go with it and just see what I can get out of it. Sort of put a little generation meter in line and just see how much it actually just generates. Even if I just plug it in back of there, so back of the unit somewhere, and just see what it generates. But I think you're right, Mike. I think the difficult thing is the wind survey, so you don't put it in a dead spot. Because you don't want to go to all that expense and everything and then find that you've put it in a dead spot where it doesn't actually get much wind.
Gonna need a bigger pole.
Yeah, that's it. You're there just cranking it up. But that's renewables. Yeah. It's new and it's exciting, and that's.
It's an interesting area to get into. I wonder if there's anyone who's watching or listening along who's got a bit of expertise with wind, because we've been trying to get heat pump installers to come on and other bits and pieces, but we've never really talked about wind before, I don't think, on the show. So if you are listening or watching to this and you've got experience of that industry, drop us a message. It'd be great to get you on and have a conversation about it and learn a bit more. Maybe there's a thriving industry there we don't even know about. It might be chugging away in the background and we're all missing a trick.
They maybe don't want to talk to us about it. They're maybe
not going to give it away.
We see what happened with solar.
This is it. Keep it under the radar.
Yeah.
It's been a great chat.
I've
really enjoyed it. And thanks, Mike, for coming to do a recording for your podcast and ended up getting real into doing it. How is that podcast going, by the way? Because you've been infected by the podcast disease and you've caught it as well now, and you're off doing your own show.
To say it started by accident and it just kind of, should we do another one? Should we do another one? It was never intended to be a podcast. It was just, let's record some things and throw them out there. And then we kind of ended up doing them every week. So it's technically now a podcast. And we really enjoyed doing the chats. And it was, like I say, just to be able to have these conversations and put them out there and hopefully help people, especially coming into the industry, and just show them the right ways. And I've really enjoyed it. Dan really enjoys doing it. And,
keeps the subtitles people in money with Dan talking on a podcast every week, translating his northern into legible English.
Yeah, you might have noticed we've had to put the subtitles on them.
No, it's really good. The more there is out there for people to learn about this area and try and keep the standards high, so we're all competing on an even playing field when we're submitting prices out there, and just for the longevity of some of these systems and for customers' benefit, like if they can have a properly trained installer that is interested in the industry, that's listened to podcasts like what both of us, all of us here do, and then like with you with the training centre, Mark, that's kind of imminently getting up and running. All that sort of stuff is really positive for the industry, and it's not all money focused and squeezing profit out of everything, and actually doing something because you enjoy it and you love it. And if you get money out of it, fantastic. If you don't and you're doing it for different reasons, then the passion is there to actually teach people how to do an install properly and ultimately deliver better, more quality installations around the country, because there's some horror shows there and there always will be. But if we can tip the balance where more people are doing better installs than bad installs, then the industry stands on its own 2 feet. Because it affects us all when people have horror shows with solar, because that one customer that's had that horror show tells everybody about the horror show. Unfortunately, the customers that have the really good experiences don't tend to mention it because they think that's standard. They've got what they've paid for. But when people have horror shows, they go, I paid all this money and it's never worked. And that can tarnish maybe 10 to 50 people's view on that specific industry. And that's a lot of people that maybe you'll be put off for life from having a system. So I don't know make it too dramatic, but I think it does benefit us all having better installers out there, because then more people get interested in renewables and solar and battery.
Yeah, it's the same across the whole electrical sector, I think, and wider construction. Remember the TV shows for like Cowboy Builders and stuff that people are watching, they've already got a bad interpretation of what we're all like from seeing that, when that's a tiny percentage of the total volume of people out there doing stuff. So if there's podcasts out there and video content and stuff in articles, in magazines or wherever it is, sharing the positive stuff that's going on, I think that's got to be a good thing. And it's certainly what we try and do through the podcast, along with complaining about stuff along the way, because we're only human.
And we've
had a little bit of a therapy in the chat today, but no, thanks for coming, Mike. It's been great to speak to you again on the podcast. You're always welcome back on the Renewables podcast.
Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for having me on your show the other week as well.
Yeah, that was really good, and that was really received well, and it's nice to see the build up to your opening.
Yeah, we're gonna have a party next week.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Look forward to that.
If you've enjoyed watching this one, don't forget to drop your comments in below and subscribe to our channels wherever you're watching this. We really appreciate that. We're seeing some good growth in the numbers as well now, which is encouraging. And otherwise, we'll see you on the next one. That was a good chat. That
Cool.
was. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I almost forgot we're on a podcast for a bit of that.
Yeah, just on a chat. Yeah. Yeah, Dan.
Yeah.
You're not here.